context. He then took the step of forwarding it onto Hope Hicks, who's now the White House Director of Strategic Communications. He thought it important enough to pass on, but he can't recall it. And what I'm really going to be intrigued by is how the Mueller team is going to deal with this, right? So we're talking about Congress saying he's not compliant, but let's not forget, Kushner's already turned over very similar documents to the Mueller team, and we've got to see how Mueller is going to react to this now. Is Kushner facing potential charges for lying to Congress? Has he been disingenuous and given conflicting statements to Mueller? All of this is going to play out in the next few days.
Well, build on that there, Frank, because we know that Hope Hicks here, the White House Communications Director, will be meeting in the coming weeks regarding the questions, and that's with the Mueller team. This could really break it open. She has been a long-time Trumpian.
Yeah, I think she's a key witness here. Think about that email that was forwarded from Kushner to her that says Don Jr.'s had contact with WikiLeaks. What did Kushner say on his forwarding email? What did Hope Hicks do with that? She reports directly now to President Trump. Did she give the president that briefing? What does he know? She's a key witness.
Yeah, Jamil, as you look at how the Mueller team's moving along, the inner circle, now clearly part of the questions that are out there, and what Hope Hicks could potentially provide to the Mueller team in terms of all of the questions related to the Russia connection question. What do you think she holds? What do you think she holds or can reveal to this investigation?
Look, it's a great question, Richard. You know, as Frank knows, the FBI moves very carefully. The Mueller understands this methodology. He's moving up the chain, trying to narrow the circle, trying to get close to the inner circle. And Hope has been there for a long time. She knows the president well. She knows his mind. They have very close conversations from what public reporting suggests. And so she's going to know a lot about what was going on and what the president knew and didn't know. And that, I think, is what really gets interesting. And so I think Frank is right that, you know, the circle's starting to narrow. And, you know, there's a very real possibility that Kushner could become a target. We don't know that he's become a target yet, but, you know, as we've seen already with Papadopoulos, if you don't tell the truth to the investigators, that can cause you your own problems right there and put additional pressure on you. And that a lot of times is used as an investigatory technique.
Yeah, as they investigate and they use these techniques, one of the requirements, therefore, for Hope Hicks will be to have proper representation. And Frank, you know, the president has promised that he will pay for, again, legal fees. That could be, at least the way it looks, a very big number.
This is fraught with peril, this concept of paying for legal fees for someone who you've got a self-interest in, right? So it's so fraught with peril that the American Bar Association has conflict of interest rules about it. I think it's Rule 1.8F that talks about basically encouraging lawyers not to take money from someone other than their client unless certain circumstances are met. Imagine your legal defense being contingent upon funds running out or someone dictating what they'll pay for and for how long they'll pay for it. Lots of issues there. I've seen it in the FBI with mafia families paying for someone's defense, right? And then drug kingpins paying for some witness defense. And then Fortune 500 companies paying for an employee's counsel because they have a self-interest in doing it. Very, very sticky situation that the ethics lawyers have to weigh in on.
Jamil?
Well, look, I think as Frank points out, it's pretty common for corporations to provide for their employees and for their employees, you know, defense. They typically have corporate lawyers, and so that's not unusual. I think, you know, what you're seeing here is they're working with the Office of Government Ethics, and so OGE is going to have to sign off on anything that's done here because what we're focused on here is White House employees, and so I think it's not unusual for government employees to have their defense paid for. But it's just, and for corporate employees, just a question of making sure it's done right and in an ethical manner.
I want to move on to Bob Goldstone, of course, still on this very topic, the British publicist, according to our reporting here. Bob Goldstone, who helped broker a meeting between Don Jr. and the Russian lawyers, wants to now meet with Mueller. And that could also, we were talking about Hope Hicks, Bob Goldstone, excuse me here, Frank, also could provide a lot of inside information in terms of what really did happen in terms of how was this meeting brokered.
Yeah, this is going to be a very insightful interview if it takes place. But you can see now we're getting so much closer. Yeah. And these are how these cases are made, right? You've got to flip people. You've got to get cooperators. And that's how you make a corruption case, a drug case, and other cases. It's a standard procedure, and we see now some very critical people coming to the table.
Some major blocks really being put together by the Mueller team, right? We had Mike Flynn in terms of those revelations that came out over the last 2 weeks. That was big. So, Jamil, when we add this in, as well as what's happening with Jared Kushner, are we at a critical point? We ask this fairly frequently, but are you seeing a new critical point that we're reaching in this investigation?
You know, Richard, it's hard to know because one of the things with these special counsel investigations oftentimes is you get pretty far up the line, but then the trail sort of peters out, and you really can't get beyond it. In fact, almost all the special counsel investigations we've seen to date, in recent memory at least, have targeted and have ultimately only indicted folks around the sort of original topic they were looking at, and so, or even on other topics. And so, you know, it wouldn't be unusual actually for us to get sort of a point where it looks like it's building up, and then it falls off. But Bob Mueller's a very smart guy. He's a sharp guy. He'll do this as long as he needs to get it right. And I think he'll keep his team pretty tight and keep the leaks locked down. So it'll just be sort of what comes out with public filings.
Hope Hicks, certainly what we'll be watching the next couple of weeks. Also the question of whether Jared Kushner will be in an open hearing in any one of the congressional investigations. That's also a headline to watch in the next couple of weeks. All right, thank you so much, Jamil Jaffer, Frank Figliuzzi. Appreciate it. Tax reform, a plus for the rich. But what about the middle class? Next, we got some numbers that show just what everyday Americans think of the GOP tax plans.
When the world hopes.
How many people have you rescued?
When the world cries.
They've been holding hostages as human